You're looking at the 2019 YAC Leaders, yards after catch, a very, very important stat for really pulling out what players dominated defenses over and over again. And it really, in my opinion, speaks to upside. If a player's got a ton of YAC yards, but maybe they struggle with injury, like Saquon Barkley, it screams out to me that this player is going to bounce back in a major way the next year. Alvin Kamara, another example in the top 10, yet he struggled with injuries all year. There are outliers in the data that point to a lot of things, and you got to kind of connect the dots on this. Let's connect those dots right now and talk about the 2019 YAC Leaders in fantasy football, and dig into what we think is going to happen in 2020 based on the data.
Ronnie Brown.
What's up, boss man?
What's up, man?
Intro. Top 5 running back. You're watching the Fantasy Football Show.
Smitty.
Take a lap. The first thing we need to talk about, Ekeler and McCaffrey are head and shoulders above the entire league. 10-19 for McCaffrey in terms of YAC yards. Austin Ekeler, 940. The next best player, George Kittle, at 602. That's great for Kittle. Kittle missed some time. Look, 14 games played. But 591 for Dalvin Cook. 583 for Mike Thomas. 10-19 for McCaffrey. And 940 for Ekeler. Everybody loves McCaffrey. We don't need to argue in his favor. But if this doesn't put a stamp of approval on Austin Ekeler's value heading into 2020, I don't know what will. He's a YAC machine. And anything he loses in receptions because he doesn't have laser locking Phillip Rivers to feed him the football over and over and over again. Tyrod Taylor checks down a lot, I might remind you. He will make up for it in the running game because he's a 400, 500 yard rusher. He'll now become an 800, 900, maybe 1,000 yard rusher. But even if he was an 800, 900 yard rusher, he will make up for losses in the PPR game. And that's assuming he takes a hit. Austin Ekeler, if healthy, is going to be a monster in 2020. This data helps back that up. Again, George Kittle, fantastic. 14 games, still had 602, third in the league. And you can tell why, right? This YAC yardage, when you reflect back on the year, what player broke more tackles and got more yards after catch than George Kittle from a receiver perspective? No one. That stat's not all that shocking. Dalvin Cook, very elusive. Mike Thomas, dominant. Chris Godwin had a phenomenal year. We'll see what he does with Brady Evans. Will it be both? That debate is a very good one to have, and we're going to have a Evans versus Godwin debate video coming up. Look at this one right here. Robert Woods, number 7 with 576. That's pretty crazy, and he's climbing up draft boards pretty quickly right now. I kind of feel like Robert Woods might get overdrafted and people are going to be reaching way too high for him in the coming weeks and months, but there is a reason why people are changing their tune on who that number 1 wide receiver is, and in that Rams offense, Robert Woods, 576, and he did really good at the end of the year. Kupp did good at the beginning. There's an argument for Kupp and Woods. I think it's pretty idiotic to suggest one of them couldn't beat the other one out in fantasy football points. They could. We don't know what's going to happen. But this stat backs up that Robert Woods has the upside. But guess who's down number 11? Cooper Kupp. This might be why so many people yell at me,
Smitty, why don't you have Jared Goff higher? You're sleeping on Goff.
I get it, but I'm not a believer in the Rams in 2020, especially Cam Akers, and I'm not a believer in Goff in terms of consistency or fantasy production. Can he produce one really good wide receiver out of Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp? Yeah. Look at Debo at 473. Look at my boy A.J. Brown at number 14 with 465 YAC yards. He had 1051, 52 receptions. I wouldn't be shocked if A.J. Brown, who is one of my biggest breakout wide receivers in 2020, I think he's top 5 bound. I don't care what anybody says. I wouldn't be shocked if he had 82 for 1,300 and 10 to 12 TDs or more in 2020. Give him 10 to 12 to be safe. Let me not go too crazy and drive people away from the show. I'm not on board. I'm conducting the A.J. Brown train in 2020. Look at LeVeon Bell with 440. Kind of shocking. LeVeon Bell had 66 receptions for 461. Maybe it's not time to write him off entirely yet. Maybe he is actually a value grab heading into PPR 2020. This right here, I haven't looked a whole lot at Lev Bell, to be honest, this offseason. I'm kind of letting the disappointing memory overtake, I think, any logical breakdowns or predictions on Lev Bell. I'm like live right now. This is the first time I've even thought about this live on camera here. I'm starting to think maybe I need to take a look at Lev Bell because his ADP is ridiculously good. And at 66 and 461 through the air, he's protected in PPR to an extent, and the YAC yards 15th. The guy I'm probably most excited about in 2020 on this top 15 list in terms of how much he can win you a league is Saquon Barkley. Now, he's in most everybody's top 2. I've seen a couple weird comments here and there, not often, where people go Zeke Elliott or Barkley, or Mike Thomas or Barkley. So Barkley does fall out of the top 2, not on the regular, but on occasion. And I'm here to say he's my number 1 overall player in 2020. His 52 receptions for 438, I think could be in the 70 or 80 range, and 600 plus, easy, 650. And I think Saquon scores over 15 total TDs in 2020. He was hurt. He missed 3 games. He only played 13, as you can see on screen here, and was number 16 with 438 in YAC. On a bad year, a struggling year, an injured year, a hampered year, I think that Saquon Barkley cannot just compete with the top 3 or 4. I put him into that category up above where McCaffrey and Ekeler dominate and are head and shoulders above everybody else. I put Barkley right there, if not above McCaffrey, for 2020. I also move Alvin Kamara up from 10 into this top 4 range. So give me Barkley at 1 if we're gonna project 2020 YAC yards. Give me McCaffrey right there with him. Give me Ekeler in that tier. Those 3 guys will be head and shoulders above the rest, but don't count Kamara out from hanging on to the bottom of that tier with a kung fu grip saying, "Let me in, gentlemen. I want to have a cup of coffee with you." In terms of YAC yards, I believe he will. And AJ Brown, I think top 10 bound, top 8 bound in YAC yards in 2020 out of these names right here, or anybody that was left off it. Subscribe, follow, get some, and enjoy this interview that I just did with Ronnie Brown, the former Miami Dolphin running back and Auburn superstar, the guy that came out of college competing with Rudi Johnson at Auburn, Cadillac Williams at Auburn, and Ronnie Brown still emerged as the number 2 overall pick in the 2005 NFL draft. The guy overcame a lot and entered the NFL as one of my favorite college players to come out for a long, long time back then. Kind of at the beginning stages of my career, Ronnie Brown is a good memory for me. So when I was able to get him on for an interview, I was pretty excited. So I talked to Ronnie Brown. Check it out. And comment below, subscribe, follow, tell your friends, and get on over to sleeperu.com and get your bold predictions, your rankings, everything you need to dominate your 2020 fantasy football leagues. Later. Take a lap.
Ronnie Brown.
What's up, boss man?
What's up, man? I got to tell you, man, I'm excited to have you to be able to interview you because I've been in the fantasy industry since 2003-ish. I'm on the world's longest fantasy football radio show in the world. It's 23 years going. I've been on at 16 at CBS Sports here in Arizona, and you're like one of the first few years I was in the industry on the radio talking bold predictions, dropping bold predictions about you and Cadillac, and so it brings back good memories, man. Just even seeing your face and being able to talk to you. So I appreciate you coming on for a second.
No problem, man. I appreciate you for letting me share your platform.
Yeah. So first off, for those that don't know, and there's a lot of younger people here on Instagram, so they may not even drafted you or had the luxury of being able to play fantasy football with you in their lineups. But you and Cadillac Williams, let's go back a little bit. When you were entering college, were you contemplating going to Tennessee? Was it?
I actually committed to Tennessee. Yeah.
Okay, and you decided to go to Auburn, and that was before you knew Rudi Johnson was lingering around, right, or coming in, right?
Right. Yeah, he came from JUCO, and he set the SEC on fire that year.
Yeah, and so you had this guy named Rudi Johnson in your way, and then Cadillac Williams steps in and kind of is. Would you say you guys had a good relationship from the start, or was it a real competitive type thing between you two?
It was a good relationship from the start. We had respect for each other. He was a young guy coming in. I'd already been there for a year, and so there was a competitive side, but we got really close. We ended up rooming on the road as we traveled, and so that created the bond because I think the respect level for one another, and also just seeing each other work and respecting each other's game and the hard work that came along with it, it made it easy for us to get along outside of being on the field and competing in the locker room.
Yeah. So you guys had a competition going, like literally you went from having these two obstacles that a lot of people would have had a tough time overcoming to becoming the number 2 player in the NFL draft, which is a huge deal. And today you don't see running backs going that high anymore. What was it like to get drafted number 2 overall?
I mean, it was exciting, and I think we've all heard the saying, like, iron sharpens iron. And so, I've been fortunate. I look at it as having the competition. I've been fortunate to share the backfield with so many great guys because that's only made me better. And when you look across the league and across the NFL and across, the board, the individuals that are better had some type of competition. You look at what the running backs of Georgia of late have done, having that constant competition. You got Todd Gurley, you got Nick Chubb, you got Sony Michel, you got so many guys, but they were there together and it created a competition because they saw the work ethic, but they also got a chance to see the result. And I think that was the same thing with me. I had a chance to, my first year at Auburn, I had shared the backfield with Rudi Johnson. Then the next year I get Cadillac coming in. Brandon Jacobs was there, and so having all of those guys to share that competition with, it made me better. And so I think that was a huge part of why, I say I ended up going second pick because I had to evolve myself and my game each year different.
I got you. Let me give you two players I think are going to break out in a major way in 2020, and I want to get your take on that. I think Kenyan Drake is going to be one of the next big, huge breakout running backs for the Arizona Cardinals. Obviously Miami traded over to the Cardinals last year from week 9 on. He was one of the hottest, if not the hottest running back from week 9 on. Did you watch any of Kenyan Drake, and do you get any feelings when you see him play that he has that it factor to be like literally a top 5 to 10 running back?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of his. The funny thing is when he was coming out, I actually introduced that pick for the Dolphins.
Really? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, in Chicago. But I mean, yeah, like I'm a big fan of him. I think he has all the ability. It's just NFL is funny, man. I think so many fans look at it from one perspective. But football is the ultimate team sport. And so, a lot of positions have to, rely on other positions, and running back is one of those as well. But, I think your success depends on someone else, whether you're a receiver or, you're a running back and your O-line. And, so the O-line kind of dictated, but even still, that's probably the most important group that have to be in unison because so much of what they do in terms of communication, they have to all be on the same page. And so, Kenyan Drake has a great opportunity. It's just about putting the pieces around him because, it gets difficult. Even looking at Todd Gurley, when he first got in the league, he didn't have a great passing game. And so everybody's just stacking the box. And so right. I don't care how good a running back you are, unless you're Barry Sanders, you're not really going to escape from 8-9 man boxes. And so, I think as as the quarterback developed, he had a better chance. And so, I think Kenyan Drake has a great opportunity, but it's still the pieces around him that are going to have to play a part in that. For me, I played running back at Miami, and in 6 seasons, I think I had 12 quarterbacks that was listed on the roster.
Bad hands.
And that's just a part of it, and I think that's, I think just being realistic about it too. The earlier you go in the draft, the more likely it is that your team wasn't that great the previous season.
Yeah. And now that's different for running backs because if running backs fall all the way out of the first round, any team could literally grab one of the top running backs. So it's different. I'm sure you would have, looking back, I mean no disrespect on your career, but I wonder sometimes what could have happened if you landed in this spot, that spot. Like it's crazy to think about, I'm sure for you.
No, I mean, I've thought about it as well. You look at, everyone talks about, production. And you look at Aaron Rodgers, but he was fortunate. He was a first-round pick, but he had an opportunity to sit behind a Hall of Fame quarterback for 2-3 seasons. And so, who knows what would have happened had he started day one in Green Bay, And so, looking at that, I think that's been the case. You look at Tom Brady, who's, obviously up to be the greatest quarterback of all time. He had fortunate ability to sit behind, a guy in Drew Bledsoe. And so he got a chance to catch the speed of the game, got to practice and kind of see how things went and create his own routine. So when he got into it, he got a chance to be a piece of the puzzle rather than having to be the piece of the puzzle that everybody developed around him.
So Drake, I think in that spread out attack, getting DeAndre Hopkins isn't going to hurt at all. It's
right.
Just a spread out environment. It's perfect for his skill set. I think he's going to see a lot of wide open rushing lanes and just have an amazing year. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think he's going to be a superstar at the NFL level. Joe Burrow said he's the best football player he's ever played with. And Joe Burrow has been teammates with both Bosa brothers, Mike Thomas. The list goes on and on. So you think Clyde Edwards-Helaire has top 5 running back upside?
I do. And I think he's a tremendous talent. And I got to see him in this past year down in LSU. And so just looking at all his intangibles, his running style, but, from what I've heard about how he loves the game, how he approaches and prepares for the game, I see him as being one of those guys that has a great career, and part of that has to be, a blessing to be healthy. But at the same time, I think he has a huge opportunity just when you look at talent-wise. He's a great talent, and I think, he's played amongst some of the best. He was in one of probably the toughest conference, in my opinion, and been able to produce. But, I think he has everything to be successful on the next level.
You're in the financial industry right now. You're a financial advisor?
Yes, I'm a financial professional now. And, that was prompted by my experiences going through the league and being able to be of service to other guys, and trying to help them prevent the hurdles that so many guys before us have hit, really understanding the business side of NFL and the shelf life of being in the NFL. I think when we first walk into it, we're all delusional to some point because we feel as good as we've ever felt. And so we assume that we're going to be able to play, as long as we think.
Where can people find you, Ronnie, if they were looking for that kind of help?
Yeah, so social media, you can hit me up on social media at Ronnie23Brown on Twitter and Instagram.
5 running back. You're watching the Fantasy Football Show.
Smitty,